Hello everyone. Unofficial results for January's main event 3-card blind tournament are now up on the website. Those results will be made official once any lingering errors have been corrected. While you wait, I thought I would cover 3 quick 3-card blind puzzles that came from the tournament. As a quick refresher, in a 3-card blind puzzle, both players have a 3-card deck that begins in their opening hand, and players play under the assumption that they can see all cards in all zones. Players begin with 20 life as usual, and do not lose the game for drawing a card while their library is empty. Your task for each puzzle will be to evaluate the outcome of the game, whether it is a win, tie, or loss for the player who goes first. Our first puzzle is Blooming Marsh, Crashing Footfalls, Evil Presence versus Karakas, Leyline of Singularity, and Sacred Cat. The Crashing Footfalls deck will take the first turn. Take a minute to consider what the outcome of the game will be, and then restart the video to see the answer. Okay, to start working towards the answer, the first thing we'll want to realize is that Leyline of Singularity will begin the game in play. This impacts the game in a couple ways. The first way it impacts the game is that if Crashing Footfalls resolves, both of the Rhino tokens will be legendary, which means one of them will die because of the legend rule. This means that the Crashing Footfalls player has no way to get more than one Rhino in this match. The second way the Leyline impacts the game is that Karakas can bounce legendary creatures. If a token is bounced this way, tokens that leave the battlefield cease to exist, which in this case means that the Rhino will essentially be destroyed. The next thing we'll want to look at in this match is Evil Presence. As soon as they're given the opportunity to do so, the Rhinos player is going to enchant Karakas with Evil Presence, which will turn it into a swamp. This is important because it means that the Sacred Cat player can only use their Karakas once in the game, and they're going to have to make the choice between using it to play Sacred Cat, or they can hold the Karakas in their hand while Crashing Footfalls is suspended, and once Crashing Footfalls resolves, they can play Karakas to kill that last Rhino. But they can't do both. If they were to try to play Sacred Cat, even with the head start that it gets while Crashing Footfalls is on suspend, the Sacred Cat has no way to outrace the Rhino. This means that it will be in the best interest of the Sacred Cat player to give up on their hopes of winning and just hold on to Karakas in the event that Crashing Footfalls gets suspended so that they can kill that final Rhino. This means that this game ends in a tie because neither player can effectively stick their threat to the board. For our next puzzle, we have Mishra's Factory, Mox Jet, Nezumi Shortfang versus Channel, Hickory Woodlot, Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. In this match, the Nezumi Shortfang player will be taking the first turn. Take a minute here to consider what the outcome of the match might be. Okay, so this one is a bit tricky. The Nezumi Shortfang player is going to begin the game by playing their Mox Jet and Mishra's Factory and playing Nezumi Shortfang. As it stands, the Channel player has to react somehow or they're just going to lose to the current board. If they were to choose to do nothing and pass the turn back to the Shortfang player, the Shortfang is just going to attack for 1 damage, and the Channel player hasn't progressed their board in any way, so if they continue doing that, they will lose the game. That might seem obvious, but I did want to cover that line just to be comprehensive. The only other option available to the Channel player is to play Hickory Woodlot, which enters the battlefield tapped. When the turn passes back to the Nezumi Shortfang player, they will interestingly do nothing and pass the turn back to the Channel player. The reason for this hinges upon Nezumi Shortfang's activated ability being one that can be used at instant speed. This means that if the Channel player now tries to cast Channel, before Channel resolves, the Shortfang player can activate Shortfang, forcing the Channel player to discard Ulamog. If this happens while Channel is still on the stack, Ulamog will go to the graveyard and its shuffle ability will trigger, shuffling it back into the Channel player's library. The trouble is, when Channel does resolve, it now ends up in their graveyard, and they don't have Ulamog ready in their hand to leverage that effect to pay 1 life to produce 1 mana. If this happens, the channel player is going to be forced to pass the turn back to Nezumi Shortfang, and at that point, because channel is in the graveyard and Ulamog is not going to have its shuffle effect trigger ever again, the only thing that the Shortfang player will need to do at that point is continue attacking until the channel player is dead. But what if the channel player chooses not to cast channel? If they don't cast channel, the Nezumi Shortfang player is still going to activate Nezumi Shortfang, but they're going to do it during the channel player's end step. If the channel player then chooses to discard channel, then once again the Shortfang player doesn't need to do anything other than continue attacking until the game ends. If the channel player discards Ulamog instead, then when the turn passes back to the Nezumi Shortfang player, the only card left in the channel player's hand is going to be channel, which means that the Shortfang can be activated again to once again get channel in the graveyard. This comprehensively covers all of the lines available to the channel player. They simply cannot get Ulamog out of their hand, and no matter what they do, they are going to die to the Shortfang one way or another. This means that this game is a win for the Nezumi Shortfang player. Okay, the final puzzle we'll be covering today is Crashing Footfalls, Path to Exile, Undiscovered Paradise versus Crashing Footfalls, Crack the Earth, Undiscovered Paradise. The Path to Exile player is going to take the first turn of the game. Take a minute to consider the outcome of this matchup, and then resume the video. Okay, so let's analyze this situation. The player with Path to Exile has a really nice advantage here because Path to Exile is targeted removal, which means it is for sure going to connect with one of the opponent's rhinos. This puts the Crack the Earth player in a bit of a tricky situation because they need to find a way to make up for the fact that they are essentially going to be playing the game with one fewer rhinos than the opponent has. So let's play this out. The Path to Exile player is going to start the game by playing Undiscovered Paradise and then suspend their Crashing Footfalls. Now it's the Crack the Earth player's turn. If they were to suspend their own Crashing Footfalls now, they would have doomed themselves to failure. If they did this, when the first Crashing Footfalls resolves, the Path to Exile player will replay their Undiscovered Paradise and pass the turn. When the other Crashing Footfalls resolves, they could then cast their Path to Exile, leaving the other player with a single rhino while they have two. At that point, Crack the Earth is no longer going to cut it because when Crack the Earth is played, the Path to Exile player can sacrifice their Undiscovered Paradise because they've already used their Path to Exile and Undiscovered Paradise has no purpose anymore. So instead, if the Crack the Earth player wants any chance in the game, they are going to wait a single turn before they suspend their own Crashing Footfalls. That way, when the first Crashing Footfalls resolves, when they take their own turn, they can cast Crack the Earth, and in this case, when Crack the Earth is played, the Path to Exile player is either going to have to sacrifice one of their own rhinos, which is going to result in a situation where both players have a 4/4 rhino, which causes a tie, or they can sacrifice their Undiscovered Paradise. But if they sacrifice their Undiscovered Paradise, they won't have the mana to cast Path to Exile. This does mean that they will be able to attack for 8, but after that second Crashing Footfalls resolves, regardless of whether the Path to Exile player chose to sacrifice one of their rhinos or sacrifice their Undiscovered Paradise, the result is going to be both players have the same number of rhinos and aren't able to attack effectively through the blockers. That will mean that this game ends in a tie. These were some tricky puzzles, so I'm very curious to hear how you all did. If you enjoyed these puzzles, consider checking out the other videos on my channel, or join the 3Card Blind Discord to gain access to an archive of puzzles created by myself and the community. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon.